Tree Talking Time is brought to you by Conkey's Outdoors and Stone Creek Hound Supply. Be sure to check them out for all your hound hunting needs. Welcome to Tree Talking Time, where we talk all things tree dogs, from the smallest feists to the largest hounds, treating squirrels to bears and everything in between. And from time to time, we might even run a little fast game.
Back in the day, I had a really good black and tan male that I'd made a night champion out of, and he would tree bears, and he was pretty good at it. And I would try to break him off of bears. I would see a bear, I'd get out, and we would try to, get on the same track as, hey, leave these bears alone. They're going to kill you if you're not careful.
Yeah.
But anyways, I took a boy. There was a boy that always went hunting with me. And he got to the point where he was probably 13 or 14. He got his own dog. So we were hunting, and it was in kill season, and we turned the dogs loose. And my good dog went back in there and treed. And usually his dog would run in there and get a piece of the tree, and his dog ran in and it come back with its tail between its legs. And I'm like, what is wrong with this pup? So him and I would go walking into the tree, and we get into the tree. It's a great big pine tree. And just about the time we're probably 30 yards away, I see something fall out of it, black. And I'm thinking, my dog has never climbed a tree.
Mm-hmm.
And when it hits the ground, it's a black bear, and a big one. I'm 6'3", and this bear was just as tall as I was.
Oh, geez.
And he wanted to get back up the tree.
Mm-hmm.
And he would try everything, but my dog wouldn't let him. Every time the bear would start to go up the tree, my dog would grab him by the butt and just kind of hang there, And this went on for a while, and finally the dog came down around a tree and took off down through the woods, and my dog went around the other way and caught him. And this, like I said, a very large bear, and this dog was very tall, very gangly, kind of a uncoordinated looking dog. And that bear turned around and swung at him. If he would have hit that dog, the dog would have been done.
Yeah.
But that dog of mine just stepped out of the way, and the bear went down, turned, and it came out onto a gas line, and I went down and tackled my dog, put him on the leash, and we're walking him out of there. And that boy, I looked at him, and his eyes were about the size of a 50-cent piece.
Yeah.
And as we're going down through there, I said, "Look out, bear behind us!" And you should have saw that young guy jump. but anyways, it was an interesting experience.
I know the look. I just took my 7-year-old on his first bear hunt in December, and things got a little wild and crazy, and there was a 483-pound bear on the ground.
Wow, that's a big one.
I looked back at him, and his eyes were giant. And he was just frozen. I'm like, it's okay, let's go.
Well, this one was snapping his jaws, and he was definitely not happy.
Oh, yeah.
So it was an interesting experience. Some of the things you get into with dogs and being out at night, it's just amazing.
Oh, yeah.
So
you're a PA resident?
I'm a Pennsylvania resident, right. I've lived here all my life.
Lifelong.
I was born in 1957, which makes me old. I'm 67, and I've been married for 40-some years. I have 2 daughters. I'm very fortunate, and this is going to sound like bragging, but I am going to brag a little bit. I'm very fortunate. My one daughter is my veterinarian.
There you go.
And my other daughter is my dentist.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm very fortunate. Actually, the irony of the whole story is I just had a dog when I was trying to put him into a pen last week. He just threw his head back in my mouth and broke a big piece out of my tooth. So kind of almost need both.
Yeah.
But no, I'm very, very fortunate. And, in that I'm very fortunate with my wife. She totally endorses my hunting, probably because she likes it when I'm out of the house. But actually, she goes with me quite a bit. She's my designated driver.
There you go.
She goes into the tree if it's a nice, easy walk. So, yeah, I'm very fortunate with my family life.
Yeah. Well, you forgot one thing. Your name's Rod Burns.
Sure, yeah.
And you were also a Pennsylvania game warden, right?
Yes, I was. So the funny part about becoming a game warden was when I was a kid growing up. Our family was poor. There was 5 of us kids, all 3 boys and 2 girls, and big eaters. So we would supplement our diet a little bit with venison.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we all hunted, but sometimes that would run out. And like a lot of the families at that time, you know, it wasn't unusual to take a deer or 2. In fact, the first deer I ever saw shot was with a spotlight. The funny part about it was I can still remember my uncle had a 22 Hornet, and he shot, and then thought we had 1 deer. When we went down, we had 2, and he had an international harvester Scout.
Yep.
I think is what it was.
Yeah.
But anyways, we put the 2 deer in the back, and we're driving up the road from where we had taken these deer. It was probably 2 miles to the house, and somebody started coming up behind us. And I tell you what, that was exciting stuff for a 10 or 11-year-old boy.
Yeah.
So, and I'd done some things along the same line that I shouldn't have done, you know, with deer, but that's what I grew up, and you know, it never hurt me. In fact, it helped me in my job, because I would catch people poaching deer and doing things, and I kind of understood. You know, I understood because I had been on the other end of it, just lucky enough not to be caught.
Yeah.
And I didn't look down on people for that. So, but anyways, so just to talk a little bit about being a game warden, would that be okay?
Yeah. But you mentioned, you know, understanding and, you know, the people you're kind of after. A good friend of mine, he's a retired sheriff's deputy, and that's kind of what he said. He goes, when I was young, he goes, I was a little wild. So he's like, when I became a sheriff's deputy, he's like, I knew how, you know, I used to get away with things. So he's like, I knew how to catch people.
Yep. He knew the trick.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the biggest outlaws in the county that I grew up in, when he heard that I'd gotten hired by the Game Commission, he's like, oh, no. He said, now they're hiring people like us, you know, because he knew that I knew all the tricks.
Yeah.
So, but I was very fortunate to get into the Game Commission. I had worked at another job for almost 20 years.
Okay.
And was always interested in trying to be a game warden. And I thought, well, this is impossible. I took the test, and I scored pretty high, but not high enough to go down the line. And I think the third time I took it in about a 10-year period, I got to go for, you know, the first part's a written test. And when I took it, there was about 1,200 people would take it. Okay. And then they would pick the best 50 maybe from that. Mm-hmm. And they would go for a oral test. And the oral test would be down at the Civil Service Building in Pittsburgh, which for a country boy like me to go down Pittsburgh was an accomplishment, just finding the building, you know. But so anyways, I took the oral test. The third time I scored high enough that I got to go for an interview. So I went down to Harrisburg to the region, or to the main office in Harrisburg, and I interviewed. And the funny part about the coon hunting part of it was, in my background check, they knew that everybody, the report showed that I was a coon hunter. I was vice president of our club. Okay. I wrote a story for Full Cry magazine at that time, or the club report for Full Cry. And so I'm sitting out there waiting to go in for an interview, and a guy walks by me, and there's a Game News magazine there with a red-bone coonhound on it. And he points at that, and he says, I'll bet you like that, don't you? And I'm looking at this guy, and I'm thinking, was this a janitor, or who is this guy? You know, but common sense says you treat everybody with respect. So I'm like, you know, I'm like, sure, I like that. I said, I've done the same thing on many nights. Well, when I went in for my interview, the person that mentioned the coonhound on the cover of the magazine was in there sitting. He was one of the interviewers. And I still think to this day that, you know, probably helped me. Yeah. I ended up being my boss, ended up being a friend of mine. Unfortunately just passed away, but yeah, it's, you know, I think that helped me. But so anyways, I got through the process, and they did an extensive background check, and I was accepted into our training academy. And our training academy for the Pennsylvania game wardens is about 11 months long.
Okay.
And it's down in Harrisburg. So you live down there. You get down on Sunday evening, and you stay there till Friday afternoon about 5, and they kick you loose and you come back home. So for me, it was really difficult because I had a wife and I had 2 kids, small kids at that time. So it was tough leaving, but we were in a training academy. The day starts probably 5:30. At 6 o'clock, we had physical training where we would go out and run and push-ups and so forth.
Yeah.
And then we would get done with we called it PT. And then we would shower quick and get ready for breakfast at 7. And then we'd have to clean all of our rooms and all the bathrooms and all the hallways. And we did all that cleaning till 8. And then we had classes from 8, many times till 11 at night.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, they were very long days. And it was a military-type academy, so they were trying to put the stress on us to see who would quit and who wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And our class started out with 17 and ended up with 13.
Gotcha.
But, so it was – and the curriculum was pretty tough. I mean, all the laws you had to learn and when to apply them and how to apply them. And you had to learn 75 different birds. They would show you slides, and you had to know 75 different ones.
Oh, geez.
That was pretty tough. All the ducks, you had to learn all the ducks, even by their wing feathers. So you just had to look at just the wings, because the wings never change on a duck, where the rest of the duck will change its plumage. So. Also with self-defense, where we would take turns beating each other up, and we would do that for probably 8 hours. Handcuffing, which the worst person that could ever handcuff anybody is somebody that doesn't have a clue how they're doing. Our wrists would be all beat up and bloody, and we would spend 4 hours straight on handcuffing.
Oh, jeez.
It was all. That's rough. Yeah, all pretty physical, throwing and strikes and so forth. But firearms, we had to shoot to qualify. We started out just shooting, and then we moved from that to a qualification round where we had to put so many holes in a target at a certain range, and you had a short period of time to do it. Trees, we had to learn a bunch of different trees and shrubs. And the funny thing about the trees is I don't remember any of it. I know an oak tree, I know a maple tree. Now the only trees, soot tree, circle tree,
there you go.
Plus tree. Those are the ones, a den tree, a possum tree. Those are the ones I worry about now. But at one time I could tell them in the summertime when the leaves were on. And I could also tell a red oak from an ash tree in the wintertime when the leaves are off,
Yeah.
So anyways, we're involved in that. And comes hunting season, we leave the training academy and we go out with other officers who are called field training officers, which eventually I become one myself. And you're positioned all over the state. I started out in the eastern part of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I thought, boy, this eastern part of PA, this game warden work's kind of boring, because I knew that back home where I came from in Jefferson County was when it would get cool in August and I'd be out raccoon hunting, there'd be shots, and they weren't raccoon hunters. They were people shooting deer because it was the first cold night.
Yeah. But
I didn't hear any shots out there. Well, then my last 2 time periods, I was assigned to southwestern PA, and it was just like a war. Gotcha. Once I got here, it's just shooting all the time, and we were, chasing deer poachers. I almost got ran over.
Oh, geez.
We had a car that was poaching deer that a guy opened fire on the car with his AR-15, and he shot the window out right from underneath the guy's arm, it was just crazy. I mean, it was that's when I realized that if it wasn't for game wardens, there wouldn't be deer.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I didn't really think that, but I realized then that there were a lot of people that would take advantage if they could. So,
mm-hmm.
so anyways, I successfully completed the field training part. And usually if you're going to wash out, that's where you wash out.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
But I was fortunate enough not to wash out. I was fortunate enough to get my first choice. Most of the districts that were open, you know, the other officers that have been there for a couple of years or so, they transferred out of like the Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and everybody was wanting to go to the rural counties, you know.
Yeah.
And I did. I got assigned to a rural county. I got to go to Greene County. And Greene County's, you know, if you're familiar with the topography of Pennsylvania, it's about an hour south of Pittsburgh,
mm-hmm.
but it's right on the West Virginia border.
Yeah.
So it was in an area that very good area to work if you like night patrol. And you got to remember, I was an old coon hunter, so I liked being out at night anyways.
Yeah.
So I spent lots of time out. There was lots of poaching going on. It wasn't unusual. I had almost 2 weeks where I'd caught people poaching deer every night.
Wow.
I'd end up down in West Virginia, and it was some crazy times and some crazy stories. But
mm-hmm.
I have people ask me, well, what's your most unusual poaching story? And I have one here. I'll tell, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's because, you know, good old Clay Newcomb has made us all very curious about poachers and all this because of his podcast.
Well, there's no doubt about that. So in Pennsylvania, a Pennsylvania game warden just does hunting.
Okay.
Doesn't do fishing. You know, most states, I think every other state, they do fishing and hunting, where in Pennsylvania,
mm-hmm.
we do hunting only. So I always said we're in charge of the warm and fuzzy critters, you know, and including down to like all the nuisance animal complaints.
Yep.
Sick raccoon, I was the one that was coming out. A possible rabid raccoon, I was the one that was coming out. And a mangy bear, I'm the one that was coming out. Or trapping bears, and you know, I trapped numerous bears, tranquilized them, tagged them, pulled teeth. I had one day that I had a rabid raccoon that I cut his head off. That's what, you know, unfortunately, the only way you can test a raccoon is its brain needs to be examined.
Yeah.
So you have to do that so the animal can be tested. So if we had a human contact, we'll say somebody was out and this raccoon had maybe bit them or bit the dog, and the owner petted the dog, you know, we would have to have it tested. So in the same day that I had the raccoon, I had a mangy bear. So I was really like scratching, and it's amazing how that works on your mind.
Oh, yeah.
When you have two animals. And I don't know, you've probably not been around a mangy bear, but it's very sad.
Oh, yeah.
It's very sad. They lose their hair. They're wandering around in the wintertime. I mean, I've had them move into somebody's dog pen, move underneath their garage or shed, underneath a shed, underneath a car. You know, they're really suffering.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's, you know, bears are a social animal, and it spreads between animals fairly quickly. But anyways, back to my poaching story. So Pennsylvania game wardens, you know, one of the things we did, and probably my favorite thing that I did, was work night patrol. And I just love being out at night. And you're allowed to spotlight in Pennsylvania till, do you know the answer?
In like 2 weeks before season or something?
No, you're not a spotlighter.
Nope.
Okay.
I've never spotlighted deer. Like I might shine my coon light out my window as I'm driving home because I see a deer crossing, but like that's about the extent of me spotlighting.
Well, that's good. There's parts of Pennsylvania that spotlighting is like a nightly activity, especially when gasoline was a little cheaper.
Yeah.
But it's still a big thing out here in the country with spotlighters. But anyways, so I picked the highest hill. I mean, I'm sitting up on this high hill, and we're in the middle of nowhere.
What's the answer? When are you allowed to spotlight till?
Oh, okay, 11.
Okay.
11 p.m. So the laws concerning spotlight in Pennsylvania is you can't shine on livestock. You can't shine on a night light. You can't shine on a building.
Okay.
And you can't spotlight during firearm deer season.
Okay.
And you have to be done at 11 o'clock. Now, spotlighting to me doesn't hurt the resource. Mm-hmm. So I was never terribly fussy about it with people that were, I would catch a family and they'd be out a half hour later, they'd be out at 11:30 shining the light around looking for deer. I'd just tell them to go home.
Yeah.
There's no sense. What are they going to be? What are they going to learn if I take money from them? It's really nothing, and it's just a family that made a mistake. But on this particular night, I have a cadet with me from our training school, and he was from down in your area, and he was just a little bit naive, hadn't been around a lot of things that happened or would happen when out at night, and
mm-hmm.
So there's a car comes by, an old beat up car, spotlighting going down the road, and I had a switch that I could kill every light in my truck. And this is an old dirt road. I mean, there's like 2 houses on it in about 3 miles. And I'm following it. I'm close enough behind this car. I'm trying to read the license plate, and the bulbs are out, and I can't see the license plate. But I know it's a West Virginia license plate. And I told him, I said, I want to see what they do when they see a deer. So the truck's going, or the old car's going down through there. And I'm right behind it, and I can see there's one person, a driver in this car, and that's it. And all of a sudden, they stop. And the spotlight goes in the car, comes out the passenger side. I'm like, how does that happen? There's only one person. I can see right in the car, there's only one ahead. How are they shining the light out the passenger side? And then I'm like, wait a minute. I said, I think I see a rifle sticking out the window. Well, the deer trotted away, and I left these people go down the road away so they wouldn't see me turning on my lights. So I turn on my lights, come up behind them, and I turn on my emergency lights, the red and blue lights, and they pull over for me. But in the process of pulling over, this person jumps up in the passenger side, and I can see it's a woman. And I see clothes and blankets flying in the air, and I told my cadet, well, either she's getting dressed, which is a possibility out here in the country, or she's hiding a rifle in that back seat. So we get them stopped, walk up, shine our flashlights in the window, and there's a 7-year-old girl laying underneath a blanket in the back seat. And the woman, who's the girl's mother, did a pretty good job hiding the rifle, but there's about an inch of a muzzle sticking out right underneath her chin. And I very carefully reached in there and pulled the rifle out. It's fully loaded, semi-automatic 22, and the safety was off.
Oh, geez.
And she had hid that. I mean, she's just so fortunate that, that something didn't happen with that when she was, trying to hide it.
Yeah.
But anyways, just an amazing thing that somebody would risk their kid's life to hide the gun.
Mm-hmm.
They'd already killed a deer. They had one in the trunk. And, but, those kind of things happen fairly common. And there was lots of nights you'd sit out there, it'd be nothing. And then, something pretty exciting would happen. But,
Conkeys Outdoors is proud to be a sponsor of Tree Talking Time. Family, hunting, tradition is the Conkeys motto. They understand the importance of passing down the tradition of hound hunting. They are a family-owned business that treats you like family. They also understand the importance of having the gear you need when you need it. Conkeys carries everything for your next hunt, and it ships to your door quick. They also offer great warranties on all tracking systems and financing options. Check them out at conkeys.com. You can also use the code TreeTalkingTime5 in all caps to save as well.
the best time that we worked was, and I'm sure you probably have some West Virginia listeners.
Yeah, we have a few.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing. But they would, their deer season would come in a week before ours.
Okay.
And where we worked at, they had a pretty good big buck contest where you didn't have to be pre-entered. And so they would hunt in West Virginia for the first day or two. Then they would start coming to Pennsylvania and working the border, driving the border, sometimes in the daytime, mostly at night, and trying to get one of our deer to take down there and register it in.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, actually, the prize was more than the fine would be. And
Okay.
I caught numerous people. I'm like, you know, either with a deer or I caught them with a loaded rifle and spotlighting. And, you know, I'd say, so what are you out here looking for? And they're always the same, man, looking for that big one, you know, and I'd send them back probably $1,000 poorer. And, you know, I'd keep the rifle for a while until everything got taken care of. And of course, then they would get their rifle back. But yeah, it was a good area to be a rookie game warden. There's lots of things happened, and it was very entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
So,
how long were you a game warden for?
well, I was officially, when I retired, I had 22 years of service.
Okay.
Yeah, I worked in Greene County 12 years, and then I come up here to Armstrong County and had almost 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I moved to get closer to my parent. Well, my mom at that time was the only one, and my wife's mother too. So we were getting a little closer as they were getting older. But this county was a good one to work. But I have many fond memories of dealing with the people down in the southwestern part of PA, and that's, you know, and when we're going through our academy, they always told us, you know, your mouth is your most important weapon, and it can either help you or hurt you. And
I'm sure.
You know, if you treated these people bad, there was a good chance you're going to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But if you treated them with respect, and then down the road further, you'd run into them again, they wouldn't be carrying a grudge against you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'll give you an example. This one night, it was really late, and I saw some vehicles parked up in a farmer's field where they shouldn't have been. And I drove up in there, and there's a whole bunch of probably 15 vehicles, and they see me coming, and they're throwing drugs, and I mean, they're up there partying. And so I'm getting all their information to write them to the drivers of the vehicles for not being up there where the farmer wasn't going to let them. And the one guy who's kind of the leader of the group, he comes up and I told him, I said, I want to thank you. You know, it could have been a lot different. I mean, I'm here by myself. You guys have been perfect, you know, and you didn't have to be. And I appreciate the way you're acting. And he said, we know you. He said, we know that you're serious about doing your job. And no matter what we did, you're still going to try to do your job. So we might as well just cooperate and be done with it. And, you know, and I thought, well, it pays to have a reputation when you treat people fair, you know, because that could have very easily went the other way. These were not really good people,
mm-hmm.
you know, but so it worked out, and, you know, and I always pursued my job. I mean, I found deer in places you wouldn't believe. I took a bear out of a bedroom, a frozen black bear, out of an upstairs bedroom one time. A deer there was a guy that had a deer. He threw his mat in the back of the truck. You know, he threw it over top of it, and
mm-hmm.
and I'm like, "What's that lump back there?" And he said, well, "What lump?" I said, "Well," he said, "That's just my mat in the bottom of the truck." And I said, "Well, your mat's got a deer hoof sticking out of it, you know." And it's just, sometimes it was pretty funny in the stories that people would come up, you know, to try to get out of things. And like I said, I expected that, you know, it wasn't something that got me upset, you know. So
that's funny.
But yeah, like I said, very good job.
Did you ever run into any outlaw hound hunters?
I ran into a couple, and I miss I miss the when people were hunting raccoons for big dollars.
Mm-hmm.
When they were $30, $40 a coon, things were really crazy. I'd hunted through that here, but I
Yeah.
wasn't a game warden.
Mm-hmm.
And I would see what people would do. They would drive. The first car would have the spotlight. The second car would have the rifle. They'd see a couple coons sitting up around a cornfield, and the back car would stop, and they'd jump out with flashlights and get out and shoot the coon. But I missed all that. When I was a game warden, I was just catching most of the tail end of that.
Okay.
But I did catch people with killing raccoons, and if you killed one in Pennsylvania, the way the law works, if you kill anything out of season, you're probably going to lose your hunting license for a year.
Okay.
And I've caught a couple people with raccoons that they killed training a pup or training a dog in the middle of summer, sometimes in the spring.
Yeah.
And I always knew, well, they're not doing this for a profit. And besides that, I always had a soft spot for coon hunters.
Yeah.
And I would say, well, if I write you the proper charge, you're not going to hunt the next year. But I said, if I just charge you where the law says that you're not allowed to train dogs with a rifle, and if I write that charge, the penalty, the fine is the same, but it doesn't carry a hunting license loss.
Yeah.
And I would explain to them, hey, I'll do you a favor. I'll keep you hunting next year. Even though I kind of had sympathy for them, and I probably, back a few years before that, had done the same things, I still had a job to do, I took an oath for it. So I still had to do my job.
Yep.
And I hope those people appreciated it, whether maybe they thought I was just kidding about losing their license, but I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
But I did have an interesting time right on the border with West Virginia. There was a truck pulled off along the road, and I could hear the dog treeing before I got there. This guy's dragging his rifle out to get out and shoot the raccoon, And, well, here I come walking up, and his eyes get really big. And he has a hunting license, a fur taker's license, but his rifle was loaded in his car, which is a no-no in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And it was a semi-automatic, which at that time was a no-no in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
So I explained to him this, and he's like, well, he said, I just got a younger dog. He said, I was all excited. He said, I know it shouldn't have been loaded. I didn't know that about the semi-automatic. He said, they're legal in West Virginia. And I said, okay. I said, I can't let you shoot that raccoon with your semi-automatic, because then I'd be contributing to the violation. I said, here, take my 22. So I have an old beat up 22 that I use for dispatching deer and sick animals, and I give it to him. And he goes down there, and I have a deputy with me, and he's looking at me. He says, you're crazy. He said, that guy might be sighting in on us right now. I said, nah. I said, he's just a good old coon hunter. That's all,
Yeah.
So he shoots a few times and knocks the coon out to his pop, and he comes back. I give him his ticket, and we shake hands and go on our way,
There you go.
So I always thought that was, a city game warden would never do that. No. But I was a country boy that was raised with my feet in the dirt, had experienced the same things they did, and had helped build relationships with people. They would say, well,
oh, for sure.
Yeah, they would thank me, and that would make me happy. That's what I wanted. I wanted them to understand that there's a lesson to be learned, but it wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
So
now, when you started about your career, and you said you went to Harrisburg and they knew you were a coon hunter, I'm honestly surprised they hired you.
Well, coon hunters really had a bad reputation. I was surprised. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But I got down there, and a guy that used to work, we have a few undercover guys that work. And we had one that come up to me, and And at that time, the PA night hunters, or that version that we have now,
Mm-hmm.
was meeting in our cafeteria.
Okay.
And they're all in there. And it just so happened that a couple of the big shots from the law enforcement agency were standing in the hall, and they see me, and almost all these people know. And they come out and they're shaking my hand. Hey, you should have saw those guys looking at me like, "Uh-oh, where'd this guy come from?"
Yeah.
But no, they were good guys. They thought. I still think they thought that coon hunters were worse
Yeah.
than what they actually were. Did the coon hunters do some things? Yes, but on the scale of things, not probably as bad. But I know what you're saying. The coon hunting part, did it affect my reputation? I don't think so, because I was an officer, and I wrote a story, and I think that
Yeah.
But some people look at coon hunters a little funny, definitely.
Oh yeah, you just hear a lot of. Well, I mean, even amongst us, we always joke, coon hunters are all liars just because we all tell big stories. But like back in the '80s and stuff. My buddy, he lives in Ohio, and he's told me a lot of. They had game wardens. He goes, it wasn't uncommon for a game warden to meet you at a tree at a season.
Yes.
He goes, if you were running your dog out of the kill season, he goes, it was not uncommon. And even during kill season, he goes, when it's legal, but he's like, you'd walk into a tree and there'd be someone standing there. He goes, that will flat scare you to death. Some guy standing there.
Will.
He goes, and he'll be standing there in the pitch black, and he goes, you walk up, and then he'll say, how you doing? How's your night?
Yes, that's a little bit scary. Yeah, like in Ohio, it would seem like everybody. I used to hunt out there previous to getting the job with the game commission, and everybody was more worried about the county sheriff than the game warden. But here in Pennsylvania, everybody worries about the game warden.
Yep.
You can almost be a celebrity. I mean, I used to drive in my vehicle. I called it the Stairmobile, because people would just stop what they're doing and stare at you as you drive by.
Yeah.
Which is kind of strange. But one real quick story about a raccoon, and I just happened to think about it, was one time there was a car pulled off along the road, and I pulled up behind it, and there's a woman driving, a drunk man in the passenger seat, and a guy in the back seat with a broken leg, and a raccoon that's alive. And I'm like, how'd you guys get the coon? And they're like, well, we saw it get ran over. Well, this road they were on, there was no traffic. I think they had ran over, but they didn't kill it. And of course, the driver was drunk, and I'm like looking around. There's no beer cans in the car, and I'm thinking, well, okay, he's been drinking in Pennsylvania and throwing his beer cans out. Almost everybody says, when you ask them how many beers they've had, they say 2,
Yeah.
And I said, how many beers have you had? And he said 19. I'm like, well, that's an unusual answer. So this guy in the back seat, I look back there, and this coon's coming to life. And I said, that coon's alive. And he wasn't the country boy, the guy in the front seat. And he starts trying to get away from the coon, and he's got a broken leg, and his toes are sticking out. And this raccoon nails his toes, and this guy's screaming, and he's trying to get out of the car, and I'm trying to get the coon, and the door comes flying open. The coon jumps out. I'm trying to chase down the coon, and long story short, the coon gets away. It didn't break the skin on his toe, so I'm like, well, you do what you want. If it was me, I'd go to the doctor. That coon bit you in the foot.
Yeah.
But I ended up citing it. The guy didn't. I said, "What are you going to do with this raccoon?" He said, "Oh, we're going to eat it." And I'm like, "Really?" And I'm pretty sure they intentionally had ran over it. I mean, if they had just picked up one off the road, that's different. But I think they ran over it intentionally. And I thought, you're not going to come up here to Pennsylvania and drive all over drinking and throwing out empty beer cans and I couldn't prove the beer cans because he said that they went down and dumped all the beer cans out of the car at a camp in West Virginia. But I still can remember looking in the back seat and that guy with that raccoon just latching onto his foot. And it's like, oh man, better him than me.
Exactly.
You know.
But not only were you a game warden for 20 years, and obviously you said you coon hunted before, but now you coon hunt again.
Right.
Took a little break while you were a game warden.
Right. Yeah. I had beagles in the late 70s, and then I switched over to hides worth money, and I switched over. I bought a black and tan, and that didn't work out so well. I didn't know a thing about training it, and then I bought one that was a good dog. It was just needed some more hunting, and I paid at that time in '83. I paid $1,700, and I didn't have $1,700.
Yeah,
but I did. I got a good dog out of it. He taught me a lot. Really good dog. I made him a night champion, which in those days, there was 30 or 40 people at every hunt. There was a lot of competition.
Yeah,
it was tough to get the first place, but so I hunted up through there, and then when I had 2 hounds and 2 beagles when I knew I was going to the training academy. So I either gave the dogs away or sold them, and then I went to the training academy. And when I knew that I was going to retire in 2019, I bought 2 puppies in 2018 out at Autumn Oaks.
Okay.
So I went out and picked up these 2 pups, and I brought them home. And just when I retired in March, they were born in, one was born in June, one was born in July. They were just ready to start training. So I retired from the game commission and jumped right into training dogs, and I usually try to do. I mean, if I'm going to do something, I'm trying to be pretty enthusiastic about it. And I hunted a lot. I mean, I'd hunt 5-6 nights a week.
Nice.
Yeah, I hunted through the summer, and after I retired, and when you're training a young dog, I'm kind of the school where if the dog does something right, take it home, put it away, and let it think about it, and then I would grab the other one and go out. And it worked pretty well. And so I trained those 2 dogs. I made the one a grand night champion and made the other one a night champion.
Nice.
Yeah, so I was very fortunate. I got some good breeding stock, good tree dogs.
Where'd they come from?
Oklahoma. They were out of a black and tan by the name of Otis.
Okay.
And 2 different females. And like I said, I was just really lucky to get 2 that worked out really well. Both excellent tree dogs. They have holes in them. I mean, they're not perfect. No dog is, but like I said, the one finished into a grand night champion pretty easily, and which was important to me. I'd had night champions before, never a grand night. So yeah, I was happy with that.
Oh, who wouldn't be?
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I turned down a lot of money for him. I probably should have sold him now, but he's like one of the family, so it'd be tough to do that. But I went to Autumn Oaks and hunted in Autumn Oaks, and I hunted in the Tournament of Champions 2 different years.
Nice.
Yeah, so I've had a lot of fun with the dogs. I still go a lot. I have 2 younger dogs. I have one that's 9 months old and one that's 13. Maybe he might be 14 months old now.
Okay.
So I still hunt a lot. It's not as easy when you get older. It seems like you fall more. I don't know why that is. I broke 3 ribs one night out.
Jeez.
Yeah, I've been banged up numerous times, but it's not easy hunting here in Pennsylvania. It's not flat.
Yeah. Not at all. Well, not at all where you're at. It's not that. It's kind of flat over here.
Right. It is flatter in your area. Not too much here. We don't have a great coon population, but not bad.
Yeah.
So there's just enough that you can make a dog if you work at it. So, but no, I think back on what it was like back in the 80s when you coon hunted, and it was, I think the hunts were more fun.
Okay.
just because of the fact that it was more like you were competing with everybody else because your dogs would all be together.
Mm-hmm.
And they would take a track, depending on, dogs would work cold tracks. Of course, they'd work a hot track, and everybody was waiting for that first good locate,
Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of like a calling contest, but also you had to be prepared to really act quickly, judge the track and how well, how the dogs were moving it.
Yeah.
Nowadays, the dogs just split and they kind of go everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and take some of the handling and some of the calling out of it.
Oh yeah, for
And,
sure.
and some of the, maybe some of the fun of it. I don't know. It's still fun. I mean, I love it. I think the competition's great, but it just seems, and maybe because how everything's better when you look back on it. Maybe that's what it was or is.
Yeah. Stone Creek Hound Supply, a family-operated business, boasts over 50 years of involvement in hounds. For over 2 decades, they've been dedicated to supplying high-quality hound gear. Their reputation is founded on unparalleled quality and exceptional customer service. Crafted from U.S. source materials, Stone Creek clothing is meticulously manufactured right here in Pennsylvania. Through their commitment to excellence, many of their customers have become lifelong friends. Now, especially because you took that big break, what did you notice when you came back, about the dogs? What's different? What's the same? What do you like better? What do you not like?
Well, the treeing part. The dogs tree now so much better, stronger, easier, take all kinds of pressure. Back when I was hunting in the 80s and 90s, you'd get a dog and you'd turn it loose and you'd have a 22 in one hand and a switch in the other, and you'd be chasing that dog and you'd be locating and running off the tree and you'd be doing everything you could to get it back on the tree. Now, I mean, some of these dogs that I've had at 3.5 months here, I leave them run loose in my house at 3.5, 4 months old. They're locked up on a squirrel to where you got to drag them off. And we just never had that type of dog.
Okay.
So the treeing part is definitely way stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I don't think that dogs ran a track any better then. I don't think they hunted better. Definitely more independent. We didn't have the dogs we had. If they were independent like some of these dogs, now we'd be getting rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because they had to almost pack up, because we drop hunted.
Yeah.
You turn loose. If you're going to hunt, I just caught the tail end of the 3-hour hunts. But if you're going to hunt 2 hours, you had to, as a guide, you had to have a half a dozen places ready.
Oh yeah.
Because you turn loose, tree a coon, right back in the truck, call time out, right back in the truck, go to the next place. And that's how you build up a score. Now it's all recuts.
Yep.
So that's a change. Actually, these 2 dogs that I first got, I never even thought about working them on recuts. They're treeing coons. I hunted them by themselves, until they had treed 40 or 50 coons apiece. And you just didn't, we never did recuts.
Mm-hmm.
Never trained for recuts. Now these dogs that I have now, that's a big part of what I try to do is teach them to recut,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But that's definitely a change.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it used to be if you had a good solid tree dog that would stay tree, every coon hunter in the county would know it.
Yeah.
Now every coon hunter in the county has one. It's no big deal anymore.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a change. That shows you what breeding will do.
Yeah, for sure.
Not
only did the dogs change, the equipment changed a lot too.
Oh yes. Compasses. When was the last time you saw a coon hunter with a compass?
Coon hunter?
Pretty rare.
I couldn't tell you. When I went to Michigan a couple years ago, they always carried compasses. They're like just as a fail safe. in case the Garmin failed on them. But
Oh yeah, definitely a smart move. But we lived off the compass back when I first started hunting, and there was many times I didn't believe the compass, and I'm thinking, and I end up walking past the same tree twice, like half an hour. In half an hour's time, walk past it, and I realized, hell, I'm going the wrong way. But boy, what a change! What a change those GPS things have made.
yeah,
Definitely a change. I did have one of the beep beep systems. It's the same things we use the game commission for tracking bears.
mm-hmm.
You follow the signal the loudest, and that's the direction you go, and drive with it out the window. But compared to what we have now, no comparison. Much safer for the dogs too.
Oh yeah.
You can tell when they're getting near a road. You know where exactly they're going to be, and much safer. Definitely an improvement.
Mm-hmm. Now your two young dogs, are they black and tans as well?
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Black and tan man through and through, huh?
Well, so far I've had an opportunity to change. My neighbor out here is Randy Smith, and
yep.
Randy's got world-class dogs that are really, really good. And, I think he's tried to tempt me a time or two to take one and hunt it. And I hope he doesn't think that I'm insulting him by saying, I can't do it. I just love those dogs. And, I like to go to a hunt and try to win with a black and tan, kind of the underdog.
Yeah.
So I can't see that changing. I'm too old to change.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'll just stick with black and tans, and for the amount of years I have left to hunt, which is hopefully some. I'm still in pretty good shape. But
yeah.
I hate to thought, what would I do without coon hunting? I mean, I do it almost every night.
Mm-hmm.
So my life without coon hunting would be pretty boring, and I'd be pretty fat. I don't want to do that. My wife's a good cook, and I'd eat and get fat.
Yeah.
Can't do that and can't,
Definitely. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think that's about it. I mean, coon hunting is a great sport. I mean, I hope people understand. They try to take kids. I mean, I always try to get kids involved, and I think in the last couple of years I've had 6 different kids out.
Nice.
And just to expose them to it.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember when I was a kid and the first time I saw a coon hunter, and we were shying. We were actually spotlighting deer. I was with my dad and a couple brothers, and legally though, we're just driving around spotlighting, and we could see these lights out in the woods shining up, and so we pulled the truck off and stopped, and there's dogs treeing.
Mm-hmm.
And I could hear them back in there barking, and then I heard a couple shots. And the dogs, I heard something hit the ground, and I heard shots. And I was probably 10. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
I was hooked right then, So, but anyways, that's the impression that a kid can have, and so hopefully people take kids and try to get them involved,
That's funny that just that little chance encounter that's not even somebody didn't even take you, but that's what got you interested right there.
Right.
That's
none
awesome.
of those people that were there probably even knew we were out there.
Yeah.
But you know what? I could just feel the hair going up on the back of my neck. I thought, man, oh man, that's the coolest thing.
Mm-hmm.
The lights and the dogs, and I've known very few kids that didn't like going out with a light at night, dogs barking, and they all like it.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully we expose them to that. But other than that, it's just like the hunters and the hunts. They need to. And I've had very good, positive events when I've hunted in hunts. I've not had those knockdown, drag out fights that everybody talks about. Everything's pretty good. I've had a couple times that were questionable, but it just seems like if you're decent, everybody tries to be decent. Find a coon for other people, take your minus, and be a gentleman.
Yeah.
Because you know there might be a young kid or somebody in that cast that's trying to decide whether he wants to do this, and you could very easily turn him off. And there goes your future. You
Yep.
know, you don't
For
want
sure.
that. I mean, we need all of the help with the laws and the shrinking property. We need all of the help with that we can get if coon hunting is going to make another generation.
Exactly. No, and you mentioning that, I did want to mention, you know, the success that we just had yesterday here in Pennsylvania, and that's because houndsmen stepped up. You know, Sportsmen's Alliance, they put a little
Right.
thing out, and then the fox and coyote hunters I know sent it around, and I saw it a few different places, and I shared it on Facebook, and I
Right.
know the fox and you know, the houndsmen really showed up, and I know the fox and coyote hunters have done a lot, and there's the Northeast Beagle Federation here in Pennsylvania has done a lot, so really thank those
Yeah.
groups for all they've done
Absolutely.
and continue to do.
Absolutely. Yes, and the Senate listened. Our senators
They did,
listened, which
yeah.
is a good thing. You know.
And right before I called you, I had somebody call me and ask me, you know, kind of an update. He's like, "Hey, what happened with that?" And I was like, they followed through with,
Right.
because heck, by Monday they were already like, "All right, we'll change it."
Yeah.
They'd had
That
enough
was a good thing.
emails.
Yes, I had emailed probably 8 or 9 senators,
Mm-hmm.
and I explained it. I had the unique perspective of being, first of all, I'm a landowner, and I've had people on my property trespassing, and I've had people coming on to my property to get a coon dog, and you
Yeah.
know, that never, hey, come get your dog. You know, I'm not, you know what I mean. I'm a coon hunter myself, so.
Yeah.
But I also, you know, I've gone onto people's property, sometimes, you know, as fast as I could to try to get my dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I also enforced the law. You know,
Yeah.
I had all 3 points of view. So,
Exactly.
yes, I had definitely contacted my senators and the senators on the game and fisheries.
Yeah.
And, you know, and hopefully they understand that, you know, hunting with dogs is what we do.
Yeah.
You know, where deer hunting is big for somebody, but a deer hunter, when you think about what they have invested compared to what a hound hunter has, it's not even comparable. I mean, I take care of my dogs 365 days a year.
Yep.
And I run them, you know, all summer. And one thing I can say is a lot of deer hunters, and I don't know how many deer hunters you have listened, but these people that have their property all posted and they're so worried about dogs at night chasing deer off, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Deer act completely different at nighttime than they do in the daytime.
Yep.
Where deer will just kind of walk around you at nighttime. If you go through the same woods in the daytime, they're going to go screaming out the other side, you know?
Yep.
So, yeah, I hope people understand. I mean, we all got to work together if we're going to continue to hunt,
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Exactly. No,
You
like I
know?
said, I'm just very thankful that those senators listened. They changed it, and you know, and that was just a committee meeting. That's not even
Right.
going to this, you know, to the Senate yet. But the fact of the matter, we got it changed in committee is a lot easier than getting it changed down the road. So for
absolutely.
people that don't understand kind of what that entails, so
Absolutely.
we got it changed early, where it's a lot easier than if it were to go further.
Right. I think all the dog hunters kind of got unified,
Mm-hmm.
and they showed a unified voice.
Yep.
And it worked.
Exactly.
That's the way it should work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the system, and that's the way the system should work.
Yep.
You know, being able not to retrieve our dog. If somebody said, "No, you're not coming with our dog," what do we do? What was going to be our recourse?
Well, so here's my thing. Like, all right, if we didn't have the right to retrieve, my dog crosses a property line. Okay, state of Pennsylvania, dogs are our property. So
Right.
I now go to the landowner.
Okay.
They tell me I cannot retrieve my dog. Okay.
Right.
Now law enforcement has to get involved. So law enforcement has to either go get that dog or escort me to go get that dog. Because if a landowner insists that I can't get my dog on, now they're keeping my property from me.
Right. Right.
So at the end of the day, my dog is going to come off of your property, with it's with me just going and getting it, or law enforcement or escorting me or law enforcement going and getting it.
Right.
So it's like the easiest course of action here is just let us go get our dogs quickly, quietly, not have to bother you.
Right.
You know, I understand, you know, people don't want people trespassing. I get it.
Yes.
But at the same time, do you want me to come and knock on your door at midnight? Like,
well, that's another thing. That's sometimes you going in to get your dog is less intrusive than knocking on somebody's door. Yeah. I mean, there's elderly people out in the country, and I'm banging on their door because there's talk about, well, they should make it so you have to ask permission to go get your dog. I try to get permission. If my dog's treated around somebody's house, I'll go to their house, the lights are on, and I'll go up and say, hey, my dog's back here. Is it all right if I go get it? And they almost always say no. Sometimes they huff around a little bit, you know, but I mean, I'll show them on my GPS where the dog came from, you know, but I'm not going to come to that house at 1 o'clock in the morning and wake people up. That's just, you know, I wouldn't want that done to me. So I'm not going to do it to somebody else.
I did that one time. I felt really bad. My dog was in their barn.
Oh boy. Yeah. Yeah. You almost have to there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My hands are kind of tied there.
Yeah. Well, what do you do?
Yeah.
You know, these dogs are, you know, they're our pets. You know, we feed them, we baby them, we doctor them, we cry when they die.
Yeah.
You know, our kids play with them, our grandkids play with them. You know, they're part of our lives. They're part of our family. And if somebody's going to tell me, no, you're not allowed to get your dog. And for example, it sounds good to, okay, we'll get a law enforcement, but what I'm afraid of is that dog ends up getting hurt or killed on that property.
Yeah.
You know, so I've been to a night hunt in Ohio where there was 3 different hounds. There was 3 hounds on one tree. They all 3 were shot.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, one kid was just a teenager, his first hunt. It's just sad. You know, why people would want to do that. You know, sad.
That definitely is.
Yep.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on, Rod. It's been good talking to you. No
problem. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was good. Yeah, hopefully people understand a little bit about being a game warden. You know, we're not always a bad guy. You know, and just a real quick note that, you know, has any hunter ever gave me a hard time because I was a game warden? No. In Pennsylvania here, everybody, even people that I had dealt with, you know, and they were in violation, have always been just as friendly as you could be. When I go out hunting with them or in a night hunt, they're all good, you know. So there's been no problem that way. In Ohio, one time I had a guy ask me, he said, so you were a game warden. I don't know how he knew, but I'm like, yes. And he said, so you wrote us coon hunters tickets, huh? And I said, well, just the ones that weren't real bright, you know. And everybody kind of laughed, and I think it kind of made him feel like a little sheepish because that was the last I heard of it.
Yeah.
You know? But no, everybody's really good. So we're all bottom line is we're all dog men.
Yep.
You know,
for sure.
And that's what matters.
All righty. Thank you.
Pleasure talking to you.
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Tree Talking Media. And until next time, keep them talking in the timber.